Welcome back. So I have a cat in my lap. I'm not sure how long he's going to stay here, but for the moment, since I'm in his chair, he feels perfectly entitled to hang out with us. Yesterday, on that video, I asked that you leave comments giving me some of your favorite cost-cutting recipes. How do you save money on your grocery bills? And we got a lot of really interesting comments, some thoughts, some observations, and some good recipe ideas. So I thought what we would do today is we would take a look at those comments. So, in other words, I'm letting you write the video for today. So, when we come back, we will get started. So, let's start with Carson C. Good morning, Sue. I think my daughter has learned not to pay $10 for a slice of bread with avocado spread on it. I'm not joking. I was hoping she was. Now she's actually enjoying preparing her own meals. Well, that's typical. Young people today, they're working, they do not have the same lifestyles that, I don't even want to say we had. It's more like our mothers had, and we probably had them, meaning my generation, the baby boomers. We probably had those lifestyles when we first started out as young adults. But we are the generation that saw the changes. So, yes, we were sitting around making food at home back in the 60s, the 70s, and perhaps even the 80s. But by the time the 21st century rolled around, not so much anymore. It was turning into grab and go at meal times. And so I understand why Carson's daughter would be saying, I think I'm just going to grab myself that avocado toast. I'm glad she's learned the value of making meals on her own, but I totally understand how she got caught in that trap in the first place. When no one's teaching you how to cook, when you don't have home economics classes in the schools, when the entire society is geared toward all of the adults working outside the home, what it's going for. So, let me share something that I probably should have mentioned yesterday, and I may have mentioned this in past videos when we've talked about changes in interior design. So we're going to go back 2,000 years to the ancient Romans. Did you know they did not have kitchens? No. Your average Roman family did not have a food preparation spot, a kitchen, in their home. And the reason for this is in Rome, they were eating at restaurants. That was simply what was going on. I know that sounds bizarre to us, but this is absolutely true. The average Roman would get up in the morning, go to some central location, the village square, if you will, and get their food at a food kiosk, at a restaurant, from a vendor serving whatever it was they were eating, and mostly it was whatever covered in a fermented fish broth. Oh my, and I love fish, but fermented fish broth, oh my goodness, no. I have trouble reconciling myself with that. And they would eat out all the time. That's what they did. For the poorer people, the state, the government provided bread and porridge and so on. You just go out, you got your free food. So when they say bread and circuses, they really did mean that the government was handing you a slice of bread. Just that simple. So even though we look at this and say, well, it's odd that we're all eating out so much, No, really, it was kind of odd that somewhere along the line, back in the Dark Ages, they were making food on their own in their private homes, because that was the innovation for them. We are just going back to the 2,000-year-old Roman way of doing things. So, what can I say? Yes, everything comes back in fashion again. Now, obviously, we look back on what they were doing in ancient Rome, and we say to ourselves, well, that's no way for people to live. Just whatever somebody else is feeding you, the government decides what your nutrition is, the government decides whether or not this or that is good for you. We prefer more autonomy, and we have an inheritance of cooking food in our homes. That's what we think of as traditional. But who knows what our grandchildren are going to think of as traditional. So let's move on to the next one. This is Margot Hartwell. This is good. Sue, I am in the UK, a senior citizen, and I'm going to stop right there. It's nice to be able to hear from the UK, because even though we have very, very similar cultures, not identical, not by a long shot, so there's always a little twist or spin. And we can't lose sight of the fact that we are two cultures separated by the same language, as you'll see. Sue, I am in the UK, a senior citizen, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but our energy costs are also going through the roof. This makes it less economical to cook cheaper cuts of meat slowly for long periods of time. But I have a pressure cooker that I can stick diced meat, turkey thigh, beef, pork, with a selection of veg, sometimes pearl barley, done in 30 minutes. My husband and I get 2 meals out of a pan full of that. I also add veg, such as red pepper, mushrooms, courgette, to ground beef, onion, stock, herbs, to make cottage pie with proper mashed potatoes on top. If you do quite a large batch of this mix, you can then add tinned tomatoes, garlic, tomato paste for spaghetti bolognese, or tinned red kidney beans and chili for chili con carne. Added bonus, children don't realize they are getting some of their 5 a day. We'll follow up on that. Sorry, this is such a long comment, but I am often staggered by the amount of crisps. Not sure if this is potato chips in the US, and fizzy drinks, etc. some people, usually mothers, have in their shopping trolleys. When I was growing up, these were special treats for weekends, and they are so expensive now. I am really, really tempted to run a little contest and let our viewers choose the number of words that are strictly used in the UK as opposed to the US in this one. This was just delightful. Well, we too have pressure cookers here. Mine is a pressure cooker canner. And if there is a difference, by the way, I haven't figured out what it is yet. Some of them are sold as pressure cookers, some are sold as pressure canners, and mine was sold as cooker/canner. The reason these are effective, and this is just essentially, haiku science lesson here. When you boil water, we know water gets up to 212 degrees and then it boils. And what happens when it boils, the bubbles release heat out into the air. As the bubbles hit the surface and burst, the heat gets released, which is why the water stays at roughly 212 degrees. It's why you can't put a pot on the stove, set it to boil, and get it to rise up to 300 degrees. You can't do it. However, if you have a lid on that pot, and with a pressure cooker canner, it locks, so the lid locks on. You can raise the temperature because you're cooking it under pressure and it will get hotter. And it's that extra heat that provides the Well, it replaces the speed in the cooking because, as we all know, you cook something at X number of degrees for X number of minutes, and you can reduce your cooking time if you raise the heat, and vice versa. You can, by decreasing the cooking time, you'll have to raise the heat to make up for it. So it's that little equation there, heat in relation to time. In the case of the pressure cooker, greater heat means shorter cooking time. Now, my mother, when I was a kid, had a pressure cooker. Oh, goodness. She'd throw anything in there. She would just, stick a pork loin or whatever, throw it in there, dice up a cabbage, throw it in, and my mother loved root vegetables, so turnips, parsnips, rutabaga, carrots, potatoes, toss it in, and that was Sunday dinner. It was terrible because my mother was an awful cook. But if you do that properly, it's actually a very nice meal. Just my mother's wasn't. She, as I say, she was not a great cook. Pressure cookers are great because you can in them too. And consequently, in terms of economical cooking, they give you a lot of options, including food preservation. So if I were to go off grid and live in the hills, I was going to say like one of those militiamen, but, no, minus the political insanity. If I were going to go off in the woods and live in the hills like a militiaman, minus the insanity, the one thing I would be sure to take with me is a pressure cooker. Because, yeah, that would enable me to live very much like a 21st century human being. Great stuff, and you can do wonderful one-pot cooking with these things. Now, let me just quickly throw this in because she said red peppers, mushrooms, courgette. We would call that zucchini or a summer squash, and I wanted to throw that in because I'm sure most of you can do the rest of the translations on the fly. But when I saw courgette and I realized, I bet a lot of people don't know what that is. It's just a summer squash. Yes, as she mentioned, you can turn it into pie filling for a savory pie. You can turn it into chili. You can turn it into stew. You can turn it into almost anything you want. And then she had said, children get their 5 a day. Now that takes me back. Because that goes back to the days when we were told there were 5 major food groups and you wanted to eat something from each of those major food groups every day, preferably with every meal. Well, nutritionists have changed that. And that's probably a whole video on its own. What's gone on with the pseudoscience of nutrition? And I do mean that. I consider it a pseudoscience. I am not yet 70 years old, and I was born in the second half of the 20th century, not in the Dark Ages, and in the 69 years that I have been alive, I have seen the science of nutrition change so many times that I simply no longer believe it is a legitimate science. And I say that as an educator, because quite frankly, if biology and physics had changed that much in the last 70 years, I probably wouldn't teach them. I would just say, no, this is voodoo at this point, because science should not be changing that rapidly. All right, that's my quick on nutrition. And as I say, I will probably do another separate video on that. But it really tickled me that Margot had mentioned that 5 a day. Because, yes, that's what we were raised with. And she's right. Crisps, potato chips, yes, you see that in people's shopping carts. People are throwing stuff at their kids, mostly to shut them up. Because the kids are inundated with images of this stuff on television and commercials. If they turn on a little sitcom on TV, somebody's eating popcorn or potato chips. Fizzy drinks here. All right, see. Yes, I am as guilty as anyone on the fizzy drinks, the sodas. But, in fact, these are expensive products with no nutritional value, and we need to be able to pull back from that and get ourselves into something a little better for us. So, I hope you got a lot out of Margot's comment, especially the canned tomatoes. She referred to it as tinned tomatoes, but same thing, canned tomatoes, throwing that in with a predominantly meat dish. It really does give you a completely different flavor. It gives you a sort of ragu that you can throw over rice or potatoes or noodles. There's so much you can do. That one comment alone, we could probably plan a month's worth of totally different and tasty, nutritious meals out of that one comment. So, thank you, Margot. Okay, next up, G. Hobson. Hi, Sue and Audie. Well, Audie's already said hi. Here in the UK, we have a cooking program which is by Jamie Oliver, and this particular one is entitled 1 Pound Wonders. Some of these meals are under a pound, but it just shows that cooking from scratch, you can achieve lovely tasting and nourishing meals at a fraction of the price using vegetables creatively. He even shows a list of the materials with prices at the end of each recipe. Well worth watching. By the way, what you said about not peeling carrots, you're quite right. You only need to wash them and use them. Well, thank you ever so much, G. Hobson. Glad that he or she, I'm going to default to she, glad she pointed that out to us. I have seen Jamie Oliver's videos coming up on my YouTube feeds. Now this happens when I post a video on something like economical cooking or something like that. YouTube will change the feeds that they give me, that long list of programs that runs down the right-hand side of your screen when you pull up YouTube on your computer. It's my feed, and they've been throwing Jamie Oliver in there. And I've watched a few minutes of one video, then I ran out of time because YouTube caught me on the fly, basically. I'm going to have to watch more. But let me tell you that a pound UK is about $1.25 here, US, give or take. We are really talking about something that is inexpensive, and you don't need to be in the UK to catch these videos. Go on YouTube, throw Jamie Oliver into the search engine and see what comes up, because the videos are right there. They're for you, they're free. You don't have to go to, BBC America and start streaming. You don't have to subscribe to Netflix to get it. It's here, it's on YouTube, and you're already watching YouTube. How easy is this going to be? Give it a try. We had a chef here in the U.S. His name was Jeff Smith. He went by the alias, the Frugal Gourmet. Jeff Smith, sadly, was accused of inappropriate sexual conduct toward his underage apprentices. So he fell out of fashion very, very quickly. Because of the trouble he got into, I would never say, go out, buy a Jeff Smith cooking book. But if you can find one on the secondhand market, check thrift books. Thrift books, fantastic books, dirt cheap. He had some great, really cheap recipes, and from all kinds of different cooking traditions. So, having said that, please do not consider this an endorsement of the man. As a human being, I am not behind anything he was doing, but as a cook and a cookbook author, yeah. So give him a check out too. And let's see. Let's do one more and see where we go on this. Another from the UK. Oh, this is good. We've got a lot of UK presence here. And this is from Sue Chris. Hi from the UK. Sue, you are so right. Young people now are not equipped for lean times. I am 71 and grew up cooking everything from scratch. I learned from my grandmother and mother, and we also did home economics in school from the age of 11 years old. There are dozens of meals you can make from ground beef, and it goes a long way. I do think schools should be. I do think schools should introduce cooking from scratch lessons. This would be of more value than, say, media studies. Interesting video, Sue. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Sue. My pleasure. Really, really good point she raises here. The kids are not being taught, and these are life skills. And this is why they're going out. Remember our first comment about the avocado toast? This is why they're buying avocado toast, because nobody ever said all it is a piece of cooked bread with an avocado smeared on it. And if it's tasty, most kids don't know. Oh gosh, I'll give you a personal story. My first husband. I once got into, I don't know where my mind was at, but got into some sort of little mental fog, and I handed him dessert for dinner, which consisted of a bowl of blueberries with whipped cream on it. I was feeling lazy, I guess. I don't know, because I used to cook when I was married. He was just blown away by this. This was fantastic. Blueberries. And he looked at me and said, "Oh, be sure you don't lose this recipe." And I was like, are you serious? This was a handful of blueberries and some cream that got whisked up. No recipe involved. But sometimes people just don't have a sense of how easy it is to cook. They look at something that's tasty and they think to themselves, "Oh, I bet you had to spend 2 years in a culinary arts school to make this." No, you could just stand in front of the television. Well, in my day, stand in front of the television and follow along with Julia Child. But the fact is, a lot of cooking is exceptionally simple. All right, quickly, we've got a little extra time. So let's see, Maureen Ingleston. Now, Maureen writes into these videos all the time. So, hi, Maureen. The price of everything has gone up so much. I was just saying to my daughter that each shop has at least doubled what it used to cost. I've recently started cooking from scratch on Saturdays to get myself back into the routine. I think I became a bit lazy making things I would throw into the microwave. Apart from being expensive, they're far from healthy. I'm anything but a good cook, but I can easily rustle up a pot of stewed meat and veg and serve with real potatoes. It's anything but fancy, but it tastes reasonably good and is filling. Well, that's the thing, Maureen. It doesn't have to be fancy. 9 times out of 10, if you throw a very, very simple meal in front of people, especially children, they're going to find this much more attractive than something super fancy that you've slaved over the stove all day for. Simple cooking is fine. And there is a whole school of thought out there that says, let us get back to basics more instead of doctoring and altering all of the food that we are eating. Let's sort of take a step back and enjoy the essence of the food. In other words, if you have a vegetable, now a carrot, say, let's make sure we can tell it's a carrot when it's on the plate, instead of throwing it in the processor, reshaping it, and pretending it's a zucchini. Lot of wisdom in this. All right, that's what I have for you today. I wish we had more time, but I don't think we do. The comments in yesterday's video were fantastic, and it's very clear that so many of you are right on top of this. Before we go, I do want to mention to our friends in the UK, we have not been hit as hard with the rise in energy prices as you have. I'm not quite sure why you were all hit so badly with this. I've been watching this for months, watching your prices go up, and it's very disturbing to me. But we are not currently going through the same thing. For us, energy prices have been going up, but it's in league with everything else. It hasn't been the extreme, drastic increases you have seen. For us, I think what we're looking at is food prices are the ones that are hitting those higher levels. Now, keep in mind, I do believe food prices in the UK are also hitting higher levels right along with ours, just in tandem. But maybe it's just that we don't have the drastic rise in fuel prices that they do to go along with it, so groceries stand out in our minds. But we are going to continue to revisit this issue from time to time because I think it's worthwhile, and I also think it is absolutely necessary. All right, that is what I have for you today. We all got a chance to see Audie. So for those of you who stay with us for the Just Chatting series, that'll be on at 8 o'clock this evening. That's New York City time. So don't even need to worry about time zones. Just remember New York City. It's that time zone. And for those of you who don't, looking forward to seeing you next weekend as we continue to escape from 2020. Now we're going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out, and we'll see you next time. Have a terrific day.